Hello my friends! Today I want to talk about something a bit different. I'm a computer guy. I have been playing with computers from a very young age. I got my first computer when I was around 10 years old. I have been a coder and a web designer for most of my life and did many different projects for myself as a hobby and for companies as a job. A few years ago I got a little bored of the software part and I started to look more at the hardware side. I started a business in laptop repairs and now I'm fixing MacBook motherboards pretty much every day. I love to learn new things and it's fascinating to see how the hardware and software work together to make a powerful tool like a laptop. However, most companies that sell laptops do not like people like me. They want you to buy a new laptop when it breaks. Not only that, these days some products are designed to break. For example, batteries that have a chip inside that disables the battery after an amount of hours used. And as you know, batteries are hidden inside of the laptop these days. It's no longer possible to take it out with a simple button. You need to fully disassemble the laptop in order to replace a battery. That is, if you can find a new battery, because most of these brands will not sell you a new one. Or companies like Apple, that made it so that you can't replace certain parts in the newer iPhones. If you replace the home button in some iPhones, it will no longer work. Every button has a unique ID that is linked to the device. If the phone detects another button, it will be disabled. You might say that this is for security purposes, because there is a fingerprint reader inside of the button, but I'm sure that's not the main reason. They want to sell you a new phone instead. They start to do this with more and more things. Replacing the battery in some iPhones will put a message on your screen saying that your phone needs to be serviced by Apple. It's usually Apple taking the lead in these practices, and soon after that the other brands start to do the same. SSDs and memory now get soldered to the motherboard. This makes it so that you can no longer upgrade your device. Also, if your laptop dies, you lose all your data. It's a good thing for my company since I can charge a much bigger amount for data recovery that way, but that's not the way I want to make money. I remind people to make backups often, but these laptop brands want you to use cloud systems, so that your files are stored with some big company instead. That way, you agree that your files can be accessed by others, for example, government. But even if you keep all your files local, do you think you have privacy? I will prove you wrong. This video is not about the repairability of laptops and computers, but I wanted to mention it briefly as it bothers me a lot. If we really care that much about the environment, we should be able to upgrade or repair a laptop, instead of replacing it with a new one every 2 years. Anyway, now let's get to the point. I want to talk about the Intel Management Engine. Most of you probably have no idea what this does. Every Intel processor sold after the year 2008 has this technology inside. It's sort of a tiny separate computer with a separate operating system, all built into your processor. You cannot access or disable it and it runs automatically. Even if your computer is turned off, as long as your motherboard is getting electricity, this will run. It's pretty hard to find information about this, but what we know is that this separate computer runs the Minix operating system. It controls and starts the main processor, which means that without Minix running, your processor would never work. It functions like an interface between the processor and all the other hardware. It cannot be scanned or detected by antivirus software, and it can bypass any firewall. It has its own LAN controller and can connect to the network through a wired or wireless connection. It has full access to your computer hardware, so it can read your files, capture keystrokes, access passwords, bypass encryption, and even see your screen output or your webcam. It can also capture all network traffic and redirect it anywhere. Nobody knows exactly what else it can do, since it's using Minix, which is open source and can be modified and configured in any way Intel wants. Intel used security by obscurity. They never said anything about it. It's only in the last few years that we start to figure these things out. Intel has never released much information about it, so we can only find out by reverse engineering this technology. This is not limited to Intel. AMD is using the same kind of technology in their processors, with the name AMD Secure Technology. Mobile devices are using the Trusted Execution Engine, and servers are using something called Server Platform Services. All these things are basically doing the same, taking control over the device. This is what Intel says about it on their frequently asked questions page. Built into many Intel chipset-based platforms is a small, low-power computer subsystem that performs various tasks. This must function correctly to get the most performance and capability from your PC. The fact that Intel keeps so secretive about this shows me that most likely they are using it as a backdoor to access computers. There are people and videos out there that say it's harmless and is needed to make the processor work better. Well, if that was the case, why is it a secret? If that was the case, there would be much more information available on what it's used for. Also, it would not be running when the computer is off, and there would be easy ways to disable it. Independent researchers found out that the NSA has been buying special processors from Intel. These processors have the Intel Management Engine disabled. Why does the NSA want this separate computer disabled? Do they have anything to hide? I guess so. Don't worry, I'm pretty sure Intel is not accessing your computer too often, but your government probably is. Not only does this destroy all your privacy, it's also a big security hole in your computer. If someone can access your computer through Minix, there will be no way to detect it, and there will be no Windows or Linux patch that can fix it. Minix itself is not the issue. Intel not releasing their own fork of Minix is the big security issue, and only Intel can release patches to fix those issues. Shortly after the WannaCry ransomware infected millions of computers all over the world, a security hole was found in Intel's AMT software. AMT stands for Active Management Technology and is part of the management engine. Basically, AMT is the software part and the management engine is the hardware part. This security hole, known as Silent Bob is Silent, allows literally anyone to log into the AMT controls with a script that generates a blank password header. It's not the same as a blank password, but an average hacker can do this pretty easily. Once logged in, you can do pretty much anything, from deleting or transferring data to installing software, accessing the webcam or microphone, or take control of the keyboard. You can block this on your PC. If you have a router, you can block the following ports. These are the ports that the AMT server uses. But I don't know if it will matter much, because a lot of routers also use an Intel processor, which also has the management engine inside. Let's watch a part of this presentation from Southwest Cybersecurity Forum. You can watch the full presentation on YouTube. I will link it in the description.
Okay, so what does it do? Basically, out-of-band remote management. You can go out, if one of your users gets a blue screen of death, you can go out and bring the system back up. Remote reboot, remote power on, power off, wake, remote recovery. You can also take a PC, let's say you take a blank disk, load it in, put the PC on the network, reach out, load an entire brand new operating system on it and bring it up untouched. So what was this designed for? It was mainly designed for very large scale commercial operations where you have 100,000, 10,000, 100,000 PCs, desktops, servers, what have you, so that you can do remote administration, remote maintenance, remote management out of band without having to go out and touch the physical piece of equipment. there's no other way to do it. If you think about the problem that this was designed to solve, this is the solution. So let's go to a kitchen knife. Kitchen knife is very useful. You can open up mail, you can cut chicken, everything else. It can also be a weapon. It's dual use. So think about that as we walk through this. You can manage it from within the network. You can also manage it from out of the network. Here's the corporate network. You have access via the LAN. You're wired, TCP/IP. You also have wireless access. So here's your operating system, be it Linux, Windows, Mac, doesn't matter what it is. Here's your Intel Core processors, vPro, 2-core, Pentium, whatever. Any chip in the last 10 years. So your 4 cores up here, 6 cores, 8 cores, 12 cores, 16 cores, doesn't matter. It's right up here. What we're talking about is another processor that really hasn't been advertised, that's a couple layers down. It's called AMT. Well, the system is called AMT. The actual hardware is called ME, Management Engine. And it's directly connected to the networking. So someone goes home, turns off their PC, leaves for the day. Is the PC off? Most of it is. This, however, is always running. If it's plugged into the wall, it's running. It has network access if it's hooked up to the network on the motherboard controller or the wireless. So midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, system administrators can go out and do whatever. Load a new copy of the BIOS, update firmware, update whatever they need to. Okay, put this in here. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time, but here's a slide deck that's animated that does bounce diagrams. Basically goes through the protocol and goes through about 10, 12 different scenarios, embedded, desktop, you name it. If you're interested, here it is. It also goes through a lot of documentation, also software packages and developer kit links. Okay, overall, the management engine is fully autonomous system. It isn't a core, it's a complete processor stack. Has its own real-time clock, has its own interrupt controller, has its own bus, has full access to everything above it.
When you say Intel motherboard, do you mean a motherboard with an Intel CPU on it?
Yes.
Or do you mean, okay, you don't mean necessarily a motherboard manufactured by Intel?
No, in fact, if it has an Intel processor and an Intel North Bridge and South Bridge, yes, old technology or old nomenclature, it has access. Basically, anything with the vPro technology in it includes the core, the Xenon, so servers, desktops, laptops, anything, everything, even the old Atom processor. 6th, 7th, 8th generation, the entire set of Xenons, Atom, Palo Lake, Celeron, everything. 100 million chips, 100 million systems, whatever they may be. Everything going back to 2008. It was designed in 2006, and it rolled out in 2008, and then it's gone forward. It's had a couple hardware architecture upgrades and numerous software upgrades. Okay, the architecture. So it basically goes on under the Intel vPro tent. Up here's the management engine. That's the hardware that's buried in the chipset. Here's the AMT technology. It does keyboard, virtual mouse, remote provisioning, anti-theft. It's tied in with the Trust platform. Basically, and you'll see later, if something goes wrong with AMT, the system will not boot. It will never boot. You have a brick. The only way you can fix it, since the system won't boot up, is through AMT itself to come in through the back door underneath and reload things.
People have been trying to find ways to disable the management engine in their processors. Many failed and destroyed their processors. Some were able to disable it partially. Two positive technology researchers discovered an undocumented HAP field. HAP stands for High Assurance Platform and was developed by the NSA. Changing this value to 1 instead of 0 disables the management engine right after the processor is started. These researchers wrote, "We believe that this mechanism is designed to meet a typical requirement of government agencies, which want to reduce the possibility of side-channel leaks." When told about the research, Intel told Positive Technologies, "In response to requests from customers with specialized requirements, we sometimes explore the modification or disabling of certain features. In this case, the modifications were made at the request of equipment manufacturers in support of their customers' evaluation of the US government's High Assurance Platform. These modifications underwent a limited validation cycle and are not an officially supported configuration." I want to include another small part of the Southwest cybersecurity presentation to show you how we can defend ourselves against this.
How do you defend against this? And there's one major defense, but when you start thinking about wall-to-wall system engineering, how am I going to defend my system, be it a big corporate hardware IT installation like Amazon Cloud or Microsoft Cloud? How do you do this? Or if you're Bank of America or State Farm or whatever. There's a whole set. So what I did was, here's the core. Here's the key to the China cabinet. The microcontroller here has its access to the LAN controller. We'll see a little bit more in the next slide. You can get around this if you want to spend a little money. Number one, put a NIC card in your desktops, because a NIC card cannot be accessed through this on a cold start. Because it's tied into the LAN controller in the south bridge. Why? Because it always knows that the south bridge is there, and it can control the power to the south bridge. This is out of the Intel 21 chapter book that you can get for free. On laptops, if you take a USB extension with a NIC, with a TCP/IP LAN connector, you can plug it in there. You'll bypass this over here. That is a way around it. Having said that, that's hardwired. Wireless. Wireless is hard because you can't control it. And if you turn the wireless radio off, this is where my EW background comes in, you don't know that it's actually turned off. So think about that for a little bit. Okay, so here's another diagram of what we had before. So by dropping in the USB NIC or the NIC card over here, you're connecting directly to this LAN driver. You're bypassing the LAN hardware that's buried in the south bridge. And thus you're Xing out, you're effectively disconnecting the server and forcing it through the standard NIC card. Therefore, you're bypassing the ME engine. The ME engine can listen for its ports all day long. It won't get any traffic. So you're starving it.
I hope it's not too technical, and I hope you understood. Basically, he said that if you have a laptop with wireless capability built in, there is not much you can do about it. Switching off the wireless connection in Windows is not a solution, as the chip on the motherboard will still be powered so it can be used by the management engine. If you are using a desktop or other device without wireless capabilities, you could upgrade it with a PCI network card, or you can use a USB network card, wired or wireless. That way the AMT server has no connectivity, so it cannot be accessed remotely. But don't think that it will keep you safe, and don't think that you will regain your privacy. There are many other tools, hardware and software that is hidden in your computer. And even without those tools, they can get much information about you. Internet is a public place. It's no secret that the government is storing information about you, but I don't think you understand the amount of information they have. Government has been doing this for a long time, as long as we have computers. Let's look at a short video from the 1960s to give you an idea about the amount of data they used to store back in the days when computers were still very new.
You found one? Did I? It looks like this one is deducting for medical payments covered by insurance.
This, we suspect, is how a great many people think of ADP, Automatic Data Processing, the newest tax tool of the Internal Revenue Service, and a new dimension in tax administration. But this is the real heart of the Martinsburg monster, its unofficial name. Nearly everyone in the United States has some concern with this mechanical marvel and its electronic relatives. Some in these same remote quarters in the mountains of West Virginia. Many in 7 other widely scattered areas of the country, the regional service centers. These machines are things of gleaming vari-colored metal and numerous flashing lights. Lights which do not, however, spell out the names of stage and screen attractions and their performers. They spell out, in a sense, the federal tax status of millions of taxpayers, business or individual. While much goes before and much comes after, most of these complex machines are placed in operation by the simple push of a finger. These are the computers, the processing machines, the electronic devices that record the essential facts of all federal tax returns. They accept facts and figures that add up. They reject entries that fail to agree. No matter what the finding, processing is speeded, correction usually hastened. The Internal Revenue Service, parent of this new system of handling federal tax returns, does not merely say in explaining why this all came about, this is the machine age. The answer goes deeper than that. Yes, taxpayers' tax returns increase with each year. So do the circumstances that make each individual return different from another. There is a limit to what most highly qualified personnel can process by hand, but men and women controlling and directing machines can keep IRS current, can give the American taxpayer the service and information to which he is entitled, and smooth the path of government. Electronic computers have made it possible for IRS to process millions more returns than would have been possible by hand, more quickly, more economically, more efficiently, a savings for every taxpayer. The ADP system is not completely free from error, human or machine, but its record of accuracy, fast accuracy, is impressive. At any given service center, a return will go through various stages. Taxpayers send in their 1040s and 1040As. After sorting, returns go through a carefully planned cycle of processing operations, like this. With everything in order, data tapes are sent to the National Computer Center, where records on each of some 85 million taxpayers are kept, and occupying a growing storage area. Somewhere in this neat and systematic collection of containers is a tiny segment of tape about you and your taxes. These tiny bits presently account for some 400 miles of tape, say the distance from Washington to Boston.
That was a long time ago. Computers are much more advanced now and we can store much more information in a much smaller space. The NSA opened a data center in 2014 in a remote location in Utah. This place is massive and it has insane security. Edward Snowden released a lot of information about this place. If his information is correct, it means that the US government is storing all your private information. Phone calls, emails, messages, every purchase you made, every location you went, parking tickets, pretty much all the information they can find about you. This data center can store information at a rate of 20 terabyte per minute. That's around 3 million pictures a minute, or 3.5 million books a minute. Everything you do online is being saved, including timestamp, location and every other piece of information they can link to it. Not only your online activity, there are cameras with facial and license plate recognition in more and more places these days. These cameras could easily be linked to these data centers. It's another way to track your location 24/7, in case you forgot your phone. This is not limited to the US. I know and I have seen government data centers in my own country. They are deep underground and have insane security. You can store all tax information from every citizen in my country on a few hard drives, so having a data center this size makes no sense. Think about this, how come people can still disappear these days? How come there are so many unsolved crimes? With the help of these computers, it should be very easy to solve these things. But I'm pretty sure that's not a priority for the government, and that's not the purpose of these data centers. Data mining is one of the biggest industries these days, while most people have no clue about it. There are many companies that have profiles for millions of people, linking more and more little pieces of information to your profile every day. Facebook has a profile for pretty much every person on Earth. If you don't have a Facebook account, they still have a profile of you. It's just not visible on their website, but it's there. They call them shadow profiles. Not only the government has information about you, also many companies are doing the same. The possibilities with this data are endless. For example, it allows airlines to predict who is gonna miss a flight. It can predict customer behavior by searching for patterns. It allows a retail mall to predict what products you will buy and when you will buy them. I can imagine many things the government can use this for. It's a way for them to predict how people will react to new laws or certain events. It can even be used to predict who will break the law, and they want to start using it for that.
We have asked the FBI to identify all further resources they need to investigate and disrupt hate crimes and domestic terrorism, whatever they need. We must recognize that the Internet has provided a dangerous avenue to radicalize disturbed minds and perform demented acts. We must shine light on the dark recesses of the Internet and stop mass murders before they start. The Internet, likewise, is used for human trafficking, illegal drug distribution, and so many other heinous crimes. The perils of the Internet and social media cannot be ignored, and they will not be ignored. In the 2 decades since Columbine, our nation has watched with rising horror and dread as one mass shooting has followed another, over and over again, decade after decade. We cannot allow ourselves to feel powerless. We can and will stop this evil contagion. In that task, we must honor the sacred memory of those we have lost by acting as one people. Open wounds cannot heal if we are divided. We must seek real bipartisan solutions. We have to do that in a bipartisan manner that will truly make America safer and better for all. First, we must do a better job of identifying and acting on early warning signs. I am directing the Department of Justice to work in partnership with local, state, and federal agencies, as well as social media companies, to develop tools that can detect mass shooters before they strike. As an example, the monster in the Parkland High School in Florida had many red flags against him, and yet nobody took decisive action. Nobody did anything. Why not? Second, we must stop the glorification of violence in our society. This includes the gruesome and grisly video games that are now commonplace. It is too easy today for troubled youth to surround themselves with a culture that celebrates violence. We must stop or substantially reduce this, and it has to begin immediately. Cultural change is hard, but each of us can choose to build a culture that celebrates the inherent worth and dignity of every human life. That's what we have to do. Third, we must reform our mental health laws to better identify mentally disturbed individuals who may commit acts of violence, and make sure those people not only get treatment, but when necessary, involuntary confinement. Mental illness and hatred pulls the trigger, not the gun. Fourth, we must make sure that those judged to pose a grave risk to public safety do not have access to firearms, and that if they do, those firearms can be taken through rapid due process. That is why I have called for red flag laws, also known as extreme risk protection orders. Today, I'm also directing the Department of Justice to propose legislation ensuring that those who commit hate crimes and mass murders face the death penalty, and that this capital punishment be delivered quickly, decisively, and without years of needless delay.
So, what exactly are hate crimes? I think it's kinda important that we define this if we can get killed for it by our governments. Are they gonna use data mining to find those people, or to define hate crimes? While in some cases this can be a good thing and prevent horrible things to happen, it's very dangerous if we agree to this. No one should be judged before they commit a crime. And the government is not gonna use this to help us, they will use it to protect themselves. As I said earlier, how come there are still that much unsolved crimes and missing people? If the government was here to help us, they would use it for solving these crimes, but that's not the case. As we all know, governments are losing control. Yes, even with all these things they do, they are losing control. Trust in government is very low all over the world. That's why they collect all our data. They are already using it to find out who or which groups of people pose a threat to them. You and I are probably on that list. But they have to stick to the laws, and they cannot use this information in court. They cannot use this information to arrest someone. If we allow them to use this in court, they will be able to arrest anyone they want, no matter if they committed a crime or not. They will be able to lock up anyone that forms a threat to them. Like I said in another recent video, I think it's time for action. We need to educate other people and make them understand what is going on. All these things make it very obvious and very easy to wake up people that are still asleep. We are losing more rights every day. We no longer have the right to protest, and there is no more free speech. You can end up in jail because of a Facebook post. There are many examples of this. So please educate other people and make them see that they have no more freedom. Maybe share this video with them, since YouTube will not recommend my videos anymore if you are not a subscriber. We have amazing technology these days and it's being controlled and used by the wrong people. We need to use this technology to improve our world and help people. We should not use this to give our governments and big companies even more power. Data mining can predict when someone will get ill and it can determine what to do about it. It can predict what you should learn and what you are best at. It can tell you what groups of people can help you evolve and which groups of people you should avoid. The possibilities are endless, and I'm sure this can help mankind in many ways we have never thought of. But right now, it's not helping us. It's making us buy more useless crap and giving companies and governments more and more power. I'm sure we can turn this around. More and more people are waking up every day, and I hope this video will speed up this process a tiny bit more. So I thank you all for watching this video, and I hope you learned something from it. Please like and subscribe and maybe share the video, it will help us a lot. I hope to see you soon. Take care, peoples.